Welcome back to the Local Lens Media Podcast, live from the Performance Podcast Studio. My name is Adam Dobbins. I am the Director of Sales here at Walnut Media, the fastest growing media company in the Omaha market. I'm joined by my compadre, my account executive, elite account executive, nominated for account executive / Street Fighter of the Year. His name is Andrew Botwinick. Andrew, it's great to see you.
Good afternoon. It's a lot of good stuff happening. I know we just this morning celebrated a few new account executives that are getting some milestones.
Yeah, we got a lot of people doing some pretty exciting things here. Business is good. I feel like the economy is good. We don't know from your guys' perspective as account executives and sales leaders going out and prospecting and talking to different clients, what kind of reactions you're getting. But in our market, Andrew, I feel like business is great right now. We're going and talking to clients and they're open to having the conversations. They're open to growing their business and implementing marketing campaigns and strategies and looking into 2025. Seems like things are going well for everyone right now. So that's good news.
Yeah, people are excited and there's definitely a lot of room to be able to have those conversations where you sit down, figure out marketing needs and how we can help.
Yeah. And regardless of how good business is, because there's a ton of opportunity out there, but you're going to have those different businesses out there that you just can't move along. You have a proposal, and that's the big topic today for our podcast is, what we call silent objections, pending business, that when you have a proposal in front of a client and you're like, okay, this is closing, like this would make so much sense. We have the most dialed in strategic creative marketing plan that is going to hit all the objectives that the client wanted in the CNA process. And you walk out feeling like you're on cloud nine and it just sits there week after week after week. What do you do to strategize to move it to the next step? Because I know from my experience, and you tell me what you think, Andrew, but I feel like a lot of account executives just call to follow up. I'm just following up on our proposal. I'm just following up on our last meeting. To me, that's pretty passive and not strategic. And we were talking today before we started recording this. You got to start thinking outside the box as an account executive. There is those silent objections like we talked about. They're not going to necessarily always tell you what those are. But Andrew, when you get to that point in the sales process with a client and you've got the proposal in front of them, what are maybe some different strategies that you do? Because I know today we wrote out on a pending prospects board to get everything out in front of us so we can really see it, because sometimes you forget. You got to get it all out there. And we covered that in our one-on-ones. Our last episode was about IFMs and one-on-ones. But what are some different strategic things, Andrew, that you do yourself and maybe that you like to see out of your sales leader to help you move the ball forward on a proposal?
Well, going back to what you were saying earlier with just sending an email or making a call and saying, I'm just following up. I'm just wanted to see if you had a chance to look at it. It's, for lack of a better term, it's a lazy follow-up. It's a lazy way to ping the business just to say, hey, have you decided if you're going to spend with us? And there's different ways to do that exact same thing without actually having to word for word say, I'm just following up to see if you had a chance to look at the proposal. One of the businesses that I've worked with that I sat on a proposal for a month, and it was just because they had to send it up the corporate ladder. But what we did was every week or so, every couple days, we would send them something different, not to the point where it was too pesky and too over the top, but we would have one of our on-air talents that was going to be working with them in the proposal that we had sent them, send them a new spec spot. And it would be a different approach than what we had last time. They had a bunch of opportunities and different things that they offered to their customers and people that would come in. And each one of the spec spots was highlighting a different thing that this company does. And after the second or third one, she called me and was like, hey, I'm not ignoring you guys. We love getting all the spec spots and stuff. I'm sending this up the ladder and I'm making sure that everything that you're sending, I'm sending up there too. I'm your guys' biggest advocate. And for us, that just proved exactly what we were doing on our side for the strategic follow-ups. It's strategic in the fact that everything is thought out for a reason. And it's not just us marking off of our checklist. Hey, reach out to this client because we've been sitting on this for a couple weeks now. I'm going to call him and see if the owner's there. Find a way that you can reach out to the owner for the exact same thing just in a different way that they're not going to think of, that utilizes what you do as a company best. If it's sending a spec spot that's brand new, if it's, hey, we were just thinking about you guys, or if it's a restaurant or a type of business, go into that business and show that you're there already and say, hey, I was actually just coming in to buy something and I just wanted to see if you had 5-10 minutes where we could sit and talk about everything.
Yeah, I love that you said strategic follow-up. You want to know something really weird?
That's funny.
I wrote that on my paper right here before you said it, so we were on the same page with that. It needs to be a strategic follow-up. It's not just a straight-up random follow-up. And we talk about this all the time, is from the time of the proposal until the time it closes, every day that goes by, the less likely you are to close that business, the more that they forget about that proposal. And it's going to be very, very difficult. So you want to continue to have those touch points, have them be strategic touch points. So you're not just checking in just to check in. You're continually trying to stir up that creative process and keep them engaged in that buying process. Because if you're just following up to follow up, that's not going to move the needle. They have the silent objection. And, you know, I like to be able to sit down with them and say, okay, level with me. Like, let's talk about this. What are the objections? Because, you know, it's been a week. And if it doesn't close within a week, Andrew, in my opinion, there's an objection.
Yeah,
you know,
there is.
There's an objection. And so you got to build a relationship with that client. You have to connect with them, because that's a huge part about what we do that we don't talk about. You can be as dynamic and creative at being an account executive. You can be the best at that. But if you can't bond and create a relationship with somebody, you're not going to make it. And that's something we don't talk about enough in this industry, is relationship building. And I always prided myself on, and I know you do as well, is being able to just sit down and have an honest, real conversation with the client and say, okay, clearly there's some hurdles. I don't know exactly what they are, but let's talk through them. You know, what are some of the things that are holding us up right now? Is it some added value? Is there something extra that we could do for you guys? We're not giving away the farm. We're not cutting rates. We're not just giving stuff away and devaluing our product. We're going to bring in some added value, because you know what? From my perspective, from the leadership team and your perspective too, we're excited about this campaign. We think this is really going to blow those objectives out of the water and take your business to the next level, increase your marketing footprint. So what are the things holding us up? Let's talk real about those. Is it price? Is it value? Because again, we talked about today is whenever you give a proposal to a client, a business owner, marketing director, HR director, they look at that bottom line and all they think about is, that's how much I'm going to pay. They don't think about, that's how much I'm going to invest in my business and what's my return going to look like? How many more people am I going to get in front of? How many more potential clients or customers am I going to be a part of that buying process that I wasn't before? You got to get in there and make sure that you're retraining the thought process on that client, because they see that number and it's not a donation.
Yeah.
We're not donating to a nonprofit. They're not just giving us their money. They're expecting a return on it. But if you think about it on surface level, Andrew, we know when we give, there's been certain proposals, they get out in front of a client, they're like, okay. And you can tell the look on their face. They're like, okay, well, that's $2,500 or $5,000 that I'm going to have to pay this month. And they don't think at all about the return on the back end.
And when clients are focused more on the bottom dollar, and that just means that they're looking only at that 5% of that audience that is actively seeking out their product, they're disregarding that entire 95 other percent of people that aren't in the need for your services or whatever it may be, the products that it may be at that exact moment. But what you're doing is you're actually, as Adam and I have said in other podcast episodes, you're planting the seed. You're making sure that when that time does come that they do need your product or services, you're top of mind already. You're known before you're needed. I mean, we end every single episode by saying that, but that's the biggest focus when you're setting up a marketing plan, is making sure you're hitting that 5%, but you're also making sure that the 95% of people are catered to. And an earlier analogy that I was thinking of, the best way to put it whenever you're getting those silent objections of people that haven't really gotten back to you and you're kind of just in the wings waiting and you're saying, okay, well, it's been a week, it's been another week. It's kind of like whenever you do a puzzle, and I have said this, I hate puzzles, but this is the best analogy I can think of.
I hate puzzles.
When you have a puzzle and it's done, you place the last piece, but you leave it on the table for 2 or 3 weeks and it just sits there because you're done with it. Everything is done. All the pieces are in there. You've done your CNA in the sales terms. You've shown the proposal. Your puzzle's laid out. It's finished. It's done, but it's not cemented. It's not hung up on the wall. Wherever you're displaying that puzzle, the campaign's not live yet. So we got to figure out what we need to do to get it from the table up on the wall or somewhere else, wherever you have those displayed. That's what the silent objection essentially is. And the only valid objection that I've actually gotten from a client that's out of their hands is, oh, well, corporate makes those decisions. I have to, we're waiting on a budget for 2025, or we don't know, something that's out of their hands completely. You can put in, obviously, the time and the effort to make sure that it's top of mind for them. And you just have to continue constantly being persistent and making sure you're persistent, but not over the top with being pushy.
Yeah. And, just another angle to really help move along a pending proposal, and especially during Q4. Now, with our media company, we're in the process of going through a rate increase into 2025. We haven't raised our rates in about 3 years, and with inflation and the price of everything going up, naturally our price is going to have to go up a little bit too. And our ratings have gone up. Our listenership with that has all gone up. Everything is on the rise, so the ratings have to come with it. But you got a pending proposal out there. You want to lock them in for that 2024 rate or that current year. If you're in Q4 and you're going into Q1 of next year, you want to make sure to lock them in for that rate. So, say, I don't know why I always come up with this one, but Joe's Crab Shack. Hey, Joe. yeah, but we're meeting right now, and I just want you to know, Jan 1, some businesses wait till Q2. Some media companies do, but in January 1, 2025, our rates are going up. I really want to lock you in for this rate right now. We want you to be able to pay the lower amount going into 2025. So let's figure this out and let's save you some money, because if we wait until Q1 of next year, this proposal that we were going to do that we're on the verge of closing is going to go up in price. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too, separately from that I've done that has worked really well to overcome the silent objection is having another member of leadership reach out to that same business, and just from a different perspective, because you as the sales rep are obviously passionate and excited about working with that business, and they may see that and they may feel that. But if you have another person reach out within the same organization, if it's the director of sales, if it's the president, if you have that ability to have the president call them, the owner have them call them, or the on-air talent that they may be working with, just another constant person to ping, maybe even the exact same thing that you pinged them for a week ago, just a different person to have that exact same thing. That may be what pushes them over the line to say, oh my gosh, well, Andrew's been pinging me for the last week or two to get back to him, but now that Adam's called me and he's the director of sales and he's excited too, I think that I finally found a fit where I feel like I'm actually being valued. Whereas with other media companies or with other partners that I've worked with, it's just been me and the rep back and forth, and I've never even met anybody on their leadership team. Your
sales leader should be glad to do that for you as an account executive. And I love being able to do that. It to me still, it's fascinating that I can reach out to a client and just reiterate the same exact pitch that an account executive did in the previous weeks, and it hits different. And again, it's just, it's like when you tell your kid the same thing over and over and over again and they don't listen, but then they hear it from, if my kids hear something from Andrew that they've been hearing from me forever, it hits different. And they're like, okay, wow, I just, that hit me in a different way that hadn't before. And again, it goes back with just a different voice can communicate that differently. And also too, just a lot of clients like to, they feel like the leader of the organization took time to reach out to me. They value me. They really do, in which we do. And we're more than willing to do that. And I don't think there's probably a sales leader out there that is not willing to do it. If they're not willing, they shouldn't be in a sales leadership position that's not willing to make that phone call, because I'm absolutely willing to do that every single time. Now, something with that phone call that sales leader will be able to do is really help that account executive with added value. Now, if you work in corporate radio, it's going to be harder to do that because you have more strict constraints that you have to work within. But, if Andrew has a pending proposal, we're going to sit there and we're going to collaborate and be like, okay, what's some added value that we can do? We have a restaurant that we just started to work with, and we're doing a special segment where this restaurant's going to be bringing some of their dishes on air, and our on-air talent's going to try it and talk about it on air. That was added value that we're not charging them extra to do that. It's just a way to enhance our partnership with our client and help move the needle forward. And the client was decided to move forward with a proposal at that point. It's just an extra way to spark creativity. Can we do an on-air interview to talk about the whole background of your organization? We have a restaurant right now, and I don't think they would mind us saying their name, but it's called Acadian Grill. Well, most people don't know the name of that. It's based out of New Orleans. It's Southern food. And everyone thinks that New Orleans food is super spicy and hot, and that's not necessarily the case. It's just seasoned in a different way. And we're going to have that business owner to come on and talk about that. It's ways to really also not only, tell your story, but debunk myths that might be out there about your brand. And again, it's added value. We're not giving away the farm. We're not cutting rates. We're giving them a social media post, maybe a web banner ad, something like that, just to be able to help move the needle forward. You never know really what's going to connect with that client that's going to help them make that decision a little quicker.
And it kind of all goes back to the whole saying that our president says, that if I could, would you, kind of saying where you go in and it's, if I could get you on air with our morning show host, Dave Wingert, to talk about your restaurant during our Boomer Foodie segment, would that be something that you would be interested in? Let me see if I can call our director of sales, Adam Dobbins, see if we can make that happen for next week. And then I step out, take a call with Adam. Adam, probably assuming it's a quality restaurant, would be like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. Let's do that. Yeah. And we'd come back in, say that to the client. And of course they're excited about it because you just moved a whole mountain for them and got them on a spot where they're already talking about food that's local in the Omaha area, in the Council Bluffs area. And now you've just put them on the map without having to actually up the cost at all, because I don't know the exact price on that, but I imagine it's not something that's going to be in the hundreds of dollars. Yeah.
And that's why it's important to be collaborating on different ideas with your sales leader and with the rest of the team, because you might have an idea that pops up where you're like, oh my gosh, there's this taco shop here in town, a Mexican restaurant, where an idea popped up that we had availability to implement this. And we had a proposal that we had gotten verbal agreement on, but it just sat there. We couldn't move it along, and it was pretty much gotten to the point where it was dead in the water. And we were able to have an idea that you just reached out one more time to the client, and you were like, hey, here's this idea. Here's something that we're going to be doing. We built a promotion around an award that they had won. They didn't even know they won the award. And we built a promotion around it, and it re-sparked the conversations, and we're actually meeting with them next week. So that, again, is being with the strategic follow-up. If we would have just followed up with them, nothing would have happened. But you, Andrew, strategically followed up, had an idea, reached out to them, re-sparked the conversations, and now we're going to most likely be closing that proposal this next week.
And mirroring that back to just prospecting in general, I think that's a great way to actually be able to prospect too. I know one of our previous leaders that we've both worked with was Scott Vowinkel, and one of his biggest things that
Scott listens to this podcast.
He does. He's going to hear this part, and he's going to love this.
His ears are going to perk up. He's like, I'm on the Local Lens podcast now.
Right? He's gonna love this because I remembered this. One of the best things that he ever taught me was doing your own individual research and about that business category or that specific business, and taking a screenshot of something, of an article, sending them a link to an article, and saying, hey, I was reading through the Wall Street Journal, and this is something that I think is an outlook for your industry in 2025. There's a 10% projected growth. We want to make sure you're getting a piece of that pie. When do we have time to meet? As far as the prospecting goes, I mean, that's a great way to get in and show that you're actually taking the time to think about their business and send them stuff that they might not have even noticed or seen or even knew about. And you can get in the door, show them something that makes you credible as an expert in their division. Because at the end of the day, as an account executive, you kind of have to be involved with a ton of different industries. You don't have to be the expert, but you have to know enough to know how their business operates, to know how you can build the proposal to make sure that their business continues to operate and is more effective than it was previously.
Oh, I love that. That was well said.
That's Scott Vowinkel. Those are his words, essentially.
That was beautiful. Guys, the main point of this is don't give up. You continue to pivot and find workarounds and ask questions and pitch ideas unless they flat out tell you, no, I don't want to do business with you. I do not want to be on your station. Until that happens, then keep on going with different ideas, be strategic, work with your sales leaders and come up with an idea, because at the end of the day, that's what sells. Ideas sell. Following up just for the sake of following up, it's going to be a tough road ahead.
We had an opportunity with a client here, a potential client, a prospect in the Omaha area, and had a great idea. Sent him one of the most valuable pieces that we have currently available and showed him how we can illustrate that for his business. And we sat down, showed it to him, pitched it to him. He wasn't a huge fan of it at the time, but he was like, the more I hear you guys talk, the more I understand your station and how we might be able to have a good partnership for it. So we emailed everything back over and went through some of those silent objections where we didn't hear from him for a couple of weeks. And we reached back out, and finally he called me and sent me an email afterwards and was like, hey, I really appreciate having to connect. We're going to pass on this opportunity. But the next part was the best part, where it was, please don't be a stranger. If you have an idea, let me know. And I think that's a true testament to what you were saying, where ideas sell. And even if it's not the exact idea that you came up with, there's always something that if they're a sports fan and you show them something that's the opposite of sports, figure out something that caters to that sports side where they can scratch that itch. And if they're a fan of volleyball and there's opportunities with the Supernovas or with the Huskers for volleyball or Creighton or whoever it may be, those opportunities are opportunities that sell if you can get the client on board really quick.
You just got to evaluate your assets. You have to know what you have available to offer. You need to be, whether you have a sales portal or whatever it is, you need to be constantly reviewing what you have to offer. And you know what? That's the great part about being a locally owned media company, that we don't have to color within the lines. We can see those opportunities, and we can pivot and custom make anything for any client that fits their business. So that's the exciting part. So I think we're coming to the end here of our podcast with overcoming those silent objections. Hopefully this was helpful to all of you guys. Again, whenever we do one of these podcasts, we really want you guys to comment, like, subscribe, share it out, engage with us. Let us know, there's probably something that Andrew and I didn't talk about. There's lots of things I'm sure that we didn't talk about. If there's something you completely disagree with that we said that you guys are absolutely wrong. Scott actually disagreed with something that we said on our last podcast, and I thought that was great. He had said, something about the CNA process, and so we had a nice dialogue with that. So I love that. That's how we get better at what we do, and that's one of the most fun things about our industry.
And the last thing I'll tack in here too at the very end of this is when it comes to silent objections and stuff that you have pending, whether it be prospects pending or proposals pending, be persistent. That's a lot of P's right there. Be persistent, because if you sit back on your heels and you wait on it, the longer you wait, one of our regional director, Doug Boyd, says this all the time, and it sticks with me. Each day you wait, 10% of what you told them in the meeting goes away. So if you wait 10 days, they've already forgotten almost everything that you've told them. So stay on it, keep on it, because if you don't, someone else will. And they're going to have an idea that maybe isn't as good as yours, but if they continue to reach out and show value and how they are excited to work with them, they may go with them because they're more exciting and they're like, oh my gosh, this guy really cares about my business and wants to connect and wants to have this partnership. Whereas this other guy, I loved his proposal, but I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we want to send out the invitation too that, we know there's probably some situations out there where if you're an account executive, you don't have a great relationship with your sales leader. Feel free to reach out to Andrew and I on LinkedIn through the podcast, and we would love to help you collaborate on any ideas. We really want this to be a forum for helping us all serve our clients at the highest level, because we know that radio and digital marketing together, to us, it's magic. You do it the right way, you're going to help a lot of these businesses grow. And we're all in this together to be able to help all of our clients get the biggest return on their investment, continue to grow the radio and digital marketing industry in general. So, all right, we have anything else we want to close with before we head out?
That was all I had, unless you have any other
We got 2 weeks in a row. Like, this is exciting. We took like 4 weeks off and we were able to get 2 weeks in a row knocked out. So always have a lot of fun doing this, guys. Remember, in media, you always need to be known before you're needed. We'll see you next time.